Good morning. Welcome to Getting
Good,
Defensive. How's everybody today?
doing good. Good morning, fantasy football fans.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. How's it going?
It's going, man. How's that out there on the West Coast?
It's bright and early, but it's going good.
Yeah, is it even daylight?
It is. It's we had sun go up maybe 25 minutes ago, something like that. So
Yeah.
it's light enough.
As the rooster crows, huh?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, this morning you guys want to talk about some rankings you both have done and want to compare rookie linebacker rankings, very early rankings, we're going to say.
Yep. Yeah, I just got a chance to dive into mine yesterday morning for a few hours. So I think that I'm ready. I don't know how much time you've got to sink into this, James.
I got a decent amount of time. I think we can hopefully attack all of them if we want. So I'm ready when you are. Why don't you get us started?
Well, my number one guy, and it's probably a lot of people's number one guy, is Jamin Davis. He was taken in the first round out of Kentucky. He is with Washington. And it's plain and simple for me. I'm not a big rookie person before the draft because I believe you do believe this too, James, is opportunity means a lot more sometimes than what talent does, as we've seen in the past. So history kind of dictates that, where the guy lands. So anyways, he's landed with Washington. You got John Bostic that basically lost a step about 2 years ago. And I mean, he's ran that defense decently. It's more of a veteran presence, but he is not. He was never an elite athlete, and he definitely isn't one now. So they actually finished last year with Holcomb finally getting healthy, who did well, and then you had Bostic in there, mainly two linebackers all the time on the field. They're in that scheme. Last year. They could have had a third, but they didn't really use a third that much, which is common. But either way, I like Jameson Davis because basically I think at this point he is the best guy on the roster. He probably is going to be the best in talent, has a better skill set than either Bostic or Holcomb. In the end, I believe they're comparing Jamin Davis to Thomas Davis, from what I understand. And I believe that they'll probably use him in the weak side role, probably every down if he is definitely that kind of player. And we're likely going to see Holcomb next to him running from the middle linebacker spot. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on this one. He's also the number one linebacker on my board. And like you said, this isn't going too crazy. I don't think a lot of people are shocked by this, but it's also the right choice. Everything you said is true, except I do think that it might take him a few weeks to really get settled in as the number one back or linebacker in that core. I don't think he's going to just show up week one and be that guy. So if you are interested in getting Davis, you might want to pair him up with an older guy who's not real high on any boards, especially in a dynasty league. Maybe you get a Jamie Collins in there who might start hot early but then fall apart later and pair the two together. But I do think he's the clear number one for all the reasons you mentioned. That Washington defense is looking mighty good.
Oh, yeah.
And having your Thomas Davis in Jamin Davis is something that makes a lot of sense. And from a fantasy perspective, he's going to probably eat volume, especially if John Bostic's the one who settles and doesn't play on the field nearly as much when it's all said and done. So he's definitely someone I think that should be the number one overall linebacker. But I do think that there's a lot of people on his tail who are closer maybe than some people might think. But he's my clear number one.
Sweet. Want to roll us right into the next one?
Yeah, for me. Oh, go ahead, Roxanne.
Was it Ernest Jones? Is that who you're going to?
Not for me, actually. I think that's who Gary's got
Gary?
on his number 2.
Mhm.
But for me, I move up Micah Parsons, and he's my number 2. Again, this isn't that shocking. Everyone loved him going into the draft, and he was the consensus number 1. And he comes out number 2 after we have landing spots. I like Parsons a lot. I know that Dallas isn't the best of landing spots because there's already plenty of linebackers there. We've got Keanu Neal. We've got Leighton Vander Esch. We've got Jalen Smith. So where exactly does Micah Parsons fall? And I think if he gets drafted at the 12th overall pick, he falls and lands on the field somewhere early and often. So I'm not too worried about him finding a role on that team. It's just more about when that role gets completely settled. I think Keanu Neal is unlikely to actually play that much linebacker, and he's going to more or less be a hybrid safety who's close to the line of scrimmage and is playing both, but he's a coverage linebacker most of the time. I think Parsons will get in there. I don't think Smith's going anywhere either. I think it's just going to be a rotational group for 2021, which means his value is a little bit negated, and which is why I want to go with Jamin Davis as the number 1 guy. But Parsons is just a talent that you're going to bet on because linebackers do well in Dallas, and he's going to get the field early and often. Is he going to get it consistently? I don't know, but I will wait and see on that and take all the other qualifying factors and roll with them.
Yeah. And it's hard to argue that he's not number 2. The only reason that I have him in at 3 and have Ernest Jones, which I'll go to next, is the fact of what you're just talking about. We don't know what his defined role is going to be. I almost see this as a them taking the best player off the board for their need. If Parsons had been gone, I'm not sure they would have took another linebacker at that position, but or at that draft pick. But I mean, that's the biggest question right there. That's why he's fallen for 3 for me. Is that I think it's is Vander Esch going to still get the chance? Is he going to replace Vander Esch? Or are they going to decide they need to have him on the field and Vander Esch and Smith? Some type of rotation. Somebody's got to play the strong side linebacker position. Parsons also has that ability to, from reports that I've seen, has the ability to be a pass rusher. Could they opt to have? Well, they have lost Aldon Smith. You have Lawrence playing defensive end, but Aldon Smith played kind of an outside linebacker position from a stand-up rush point. So where does he fit in? And we still have Neal, and maybe this pick did change for Neal. Maybe this being added, maybe Neal does just slot right into the strong safety, and maybe just learn to back up Jamin Smith or something. But I think the overall thing about this whole situation with them taking Parsons is that we were making a prediction earlier a few weeks ago that Vander Esch was in trouble. They've opted out. They have not picked up his 5th-year option. He's got injury concerns and everything else. And, we were warning back then that it's a possibility that Neal and Smith would push Vander Esch. Now it definitely looks like somebody is pushing Vander Esch out of this lineup. If not this year, if he does not stand up and they do something that we're not expecting, Vander Esch he's sliding. He's sliding big time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll roll right into my second guy is Ernest Jones.
Hang on, is he 3rd on James' list?
He is 3rd on my list, but it's a very, very close 3rd. I'll say that.
Right.
Why can't I find your rankings? Are they in the chat?
They aren't. I didn't drop them. I was just going to drop them live, so that's on me.
So they're not in the chat?
They are not. No.
Okay.
Yeah, Ernest Jones, to me, I mean, he went in the 3rd round. He's out of South Carolina. Looking into the situation, I mean, he comes in 2nd for me because I'm looking at this as odds and opportunity for 2021 redrafts, basically. So this is, don't take this as dynasty, folks. This is where the hairs for the IDP really come in, and they're really fine. So there's no real right or wrong, I believe, in these top ones. Between me or me or James or anybody else out there, no reason to get defensive about it. But either way, I took Ernest Jones basically because from what I understand, and I'm seeing amongst the depth chart, unless they have somebody they sign, like say KJ Wright or something, Ernest Jones apparently is heads and tails above all the other talent at the linebacker core for the Rams. And I was actually shocked to see that the Rams made a move, because they usually, if we remember talking about Corey Littleton, I believe Corey Littleton was either a 7th round pick or undrafted. And they just kind of groomed him, stuck him in there, and he was able to do the job in that defense by opportunity. And I think that kind of reflected on Littleton's down year last year in a new scheme with the Raiders, because everybody knows he was a big disappointment. So basically, Ernest Jones being taken in the 3rd round, they're finally addressing their linebacker problem. What was the guy, Kaiser, last year? Mm-hmm. He graded out poor across the board, couldn't stay healthy, I believe. Then you had Kenny Young, which was, I believe he was a reach for Baltimore a few years ago at 3rd or 4th round. Apparently he's just never, come up to par for anybody, because they used him sparingly as the other inside linebacker. So it's just a basic, Kentucky Derby thing. He's the best horse to pick in this race. So that's basically why he's in there too. I think that he's going to have more of a clear-cut role as a starter than what Parsons is.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. When I have Parsons as my number 2, I'm taking it from a little bit of a dynasty perspective, as he's the next guy in Dallas. He's not currently the guy, whereas everything you're saying about Ernest Jones is correct. He should step in immediately and perform immediately. I don't necessarily love him as a player, but I love him as what the Rams think of him and what he's going to do immediately. So he's my number 3 back for reasons that are just, he's there and he's going to perform, and they think he's the guy. So it doesn't matter what I think of him. It matters what they think of him. No, and right. I think that there's a good amount of linebackers coming up here that fall in that same type of category. To segue into my number 4, Pete Werner, I think he's going to do the exact same thing for the Saints. Their linebacking core is Demario Davis, who's extremely old, and Zach Bond. I guess they've got Christian Kirksey over there, or Craig Robertson, one of those former Browns backers. Andrew Dowdell, and then it just falls apart, their entire linebacking core. So I think he's going to get in there and play right away, Pete Werner that is, and be a fantasy relevant linebacker to start. And I think this linebacking core is pretty deep. When you look at rookies this year, I think Werner is going to have starting ability across standard 12-man leagues and not just be a dynasty play. And as the 4th linebacker falling off a board, I like him a lot. I think it's really a toss-up between him and Jones. But I think that there's a few more guys as well who fall in this category of, they got drafted by a team that needs a linebacker. They're going to play. They're going to produce because they have high enough draft capital to be that guy. And sure, they might actually stink on the field, but they're going to at least get a chance to prove they don't stink, which is all you can ask for in a rookie, is to get playing time. And I think there's a lot of playing time out there.
Yep. Hey, I love it. I mean, I have him penciled in at 7 as a Buckeye. Of course, you are too. I love it. I mean, I would love to think that they're going to do that. The reason he fell down is to 7th for me, even though he was taken in the 2nd round. I believe, didn't New Orleans possibly trade to get him? Didn't they trade to get that pick? Don't quote me on that. I'm not really sure. But either way, I perfectly understand why you would have him higher than I would. I'm just not convinced the way that they use their damn linebackers down there for the last few years. I'm not sure Davis has lost a step enough to have Pete Werner step right in. He will step in as a starter, but I don't think it's going to be possibly as a full-time starter. They have this weird rotation they like to do. at times, and sometimes they'll even, I don't think he fits into their strong side linebacker role. He's more of a weak side inside linebacker or even a Mike linebacker more than what he would be a strong side. So I'm nervous about how much playing time that he's going to be able to get in that defense. I love the kid's athleticism, skill set. If he was at any other place, I would probably have him way up higher on my board. And then I have another problem with Sean McVay. He has a problem of letting rookies play a lot of times, and with Davis being there, not completely being like a John Bostic and lost steps completely. That's the only reason he's down on the board for me. And in my third or fourth hole, so we went, let's see, what were we on? Third, fourth?
You're going to fourth now.
Okay, I've got Zaven Collins of Arizona, and basically without a defined position, he may replace Hicks, he may not replace Hicks, he may, we could possibly see him in a Hassan Riddick role. I know that they're planning on, it's been stated that they plan on putting him in at the Mike backer, and that's making me nervous because as of right now, Hicks is still on that roster as far as I know. So they're saying they're going to learn from their mistake of Simmons. Of course, Simmons didn't have an off season last year. They had COVID problems. He didn't have time to get, acclimated with the defensive scheme and all of that. So it took them quite a while last season to get him in there and start making plays. But they're saying they're not going to do that with Collins. We'll see. This is why he's down to fourth for me. I believe that, you look at it dynasty-wise, it's a home run. I think this year we got a double, maybe a triple, and I'm just kind of – I was questioning. I almost dropped him down another notch. But what do you think?
Yeah, he's one notch below for me, but he actually falls in as my number 5. And it's for all the reason you said. They drafted him 16th overall. That's a lot of investment. They're going to get him on the field. At the same time, they've got a lot of solid linebackers already there. So is he going to get on the field today? And if so, is he going to produce, in a volume capacity? I don't think so. I think he's going into that Hassan Reddick role, which is a sack-based role. It's a good role, but it's not necessarily the guy that I want to have as a rookie. I think it's going to take him some time. I don't think he's going to show up week 1. I think, yes, they're saying, we're not going to have an Isaiah Simmons repeat, but they're going to have an Isaiah Simmons repeat, and it's going to take some time. But, 300 days from now, when we're looking at the 2022 outlook, there's going to be Collins jumping up a lot of boards. And I like him for that reason. I think that he's an asset that will appreciate. I think 1 year from now, he is not going to have a lower value. He's going to have a higher value. And I think the reason we're knocking him is we saw what they did with Isaiah Simmons. We don't think that they're just going to magically fix themselves in one season. They're going to take their time getting him in, and that's okay from a real-world perspective, but from a fantasy perspective, you're going to be kind of sitting on a roster spot. If you're okay with that, if you run with a taxi squad in Dynasty, if you understand maybe in a redraft that you can add him, hope he does hot early and cut him if necessary, then fine. But he's got a lot of variance, which sets him back from everyone else because those guys already have a lot of high odds of producing, whereas Collins is more a home run hitter or a absolute bust for a one-season perspective. And for a long-term perspective, he's going to go up, but it's just going to take time. And a lot of fantasy players don't have time. So if you don't have it, you should probably stay away from Collins.
I just wanted to add real quick. This was my initial, and I'm glad because me and you have not talked about this because I was wavering so much and being my initial, he might drop down on my board at this point. I'm going to have to reevaluate this. I know you put your homework in and you might have your homework a little bit better than mine because I'm just not a rookie kind of guy. Of course, I know you're not big on them either, but either way, I'm glad you had those statements because I might be wavering on them. The one thing that I would watch for, I started to look, I think Hicks is in his last year of his contract, and I don't think that there's any dead money or much dead money if they released him or traded him or something. Man, I'll tell you what, he'll shoot up the board, and I want to believe it'll be the Hassan Reddick role too this year. I do want to believe that. I thought Simmons was going to be an edge rusher last year, and I kept making that call, and he didn't do it. They never did it. I thought, especially when Chandler Jones went down, I thought, man, why ain't they using this kid to pass rush?
Yeah, and I was in the same boat. I was like, oh, he's going to edge rush.
And I didn't even know you last year, did I?
Yeah, and
That's pretty wild.
He looked fine as an edge rusher occasionally when he was in the game. But they seem to say, no, we don't want you to do that, which is just odd because pass rushing is pretty simple. You go at the pass rusher. You don't really have to know scheme. Right. You just have to have talent.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of the cautious thing about this whole situation. If we found out to release Hicks, I think Collins has to shoot up the board a little bit, or maybe not shoot up the board a little bit, but maybe – it's a definite, sign that they because from what I understand, they are saying that he's going to play Mike. I don't know if you've seen those reports, but things change, and that's a GM. When you get those coaches on the field and they're evaluating their talent through OTAs or whatever, which we hope we have this year, they can totally change their mind. So it's a fluid situation overall.
Yeah, exactly. Until you actually see players set foot on the field and what they're doing. You take anything that comes out of a GM's mouth with a grain of salt. No. It might be what they want. It might be what they want you to think, but they're not actually doing. You never know if they're actually telling the truth or not. So you just look at the roster and make your analysis there and then see what goes on. At least that's how I operate.
And usually they're not telling you the truth. Like 10% of the time is all it is. I've come to this conclusion.
I've seen, while we're on the Cardinals, I can't remember, that people are suspecting that it's possible that they move Simmons to strong safety. Have you seen any of that?
I have, and I don't think that that's insane. I think that the NFL is slowly and quietly creating this hybrid linebacker / safety role of just a guy who can play all over the field. Everyone's trying to create Jamal Adams, but make them more of a linebacker than necessarily a safety. But it's trying to find the name for the position because what's a safety? What's a linebacker? What's an edge rusher?
Right. It's really fluid. Yeah.
And I think that's trying to exist. But I think like with a lot of things in the NFL, you're trying to copycat someone. And Jamal Adams is a special football player. Yeah. And, Isaiah Simmons is also a very good football player, but he might not be Jamal Adams, and the ability to do that and have him play coverage like that's necessary in order to be a safety is odd, but I'm also thinking of a safety in a traditional sense. Maybe that's not what they really mean. They really mean an edge rusher who also just pass protects a little bit more. I mean, it's like all over the place in terms of what does that actually mean versus the words coming out of mouths.
Right. Yeah, back in the day, Deion Buchanan, who else was there? I'm trying to think of, who else was there? There was like a generation about 5 or 6 years ago where we started getting those kinds of players out of college where they could play the strong safety linebacker role, where they were put into position, nickelback or whatever you wanted to call it, to where they could really excel and they were a focus of the defense, funnel the plays to this guy kind of. And I think what is Simmons? Isn't Simmons like 6'4"?
He's a big guy. I know that.
Could you imagine seeing him playing that? It just, to me, it's just thinking of the traditional safety, just to see that on the field. Say you had Collins and Hicks playing linebacker, and then you had this big 6'4" dude playing strong safety. That would be, I'd have to get a picture of it hanging on the wall because it would just look so odd to me. Not saying it can't happen. Again, everything's a fluid situation. And I think that a lot of times, if I like those innovative defensive coordinators that want to get their best people on the field no matter what position they have to stick him in, as long as they work well within the scheme. So I think it's something that like Bill Belichick's been able to do with some retreads and everything else is how he runs it. They suck for IDP, but how he actually runs his defense is he'll take retreads, he'll take unknowns and find their best qualities, put them in there when they need to be schemed in, and change that scheme whenever necessary. And I like that. You know, in the back of my mind, I like that. So, well, it'll be interesting to see what the Cardinals do. So you're rolling right into your next guy, I think.
Yeah, it's another Ohio State guy like Baron Browning over in Denver. And it's kind of odd to sandwich Zaven Collins between him and his Ohio State brethren in Pete Werner. But Baron Browning is kind of the same thing to me as Pete Werner in the sense that A.J. Johnson is not a guy who I think is going to be long-term in Denver. He's fine. He performed well when given the opportunity, but he by no means is the guy. He's just a guy being the guy.
Yeah.
And I think Browning is the next guy in theory. That's why you take him in the third round. That's why you give him that type of draft capital investment.
Right.
And I think he can sneak in there and actually perform well this year. I just like Collins' straight variability above him better because he's got the higher ceiling than I think Browning has. But I think Browning's got that better floor. If you're looking for a safer option, a guy who's just going to get you tackles, if you're not a big play league guy, if you don't get a lot of points for those sacks, for those fumbles and whatnot, I think Browning might be a better play. These guys are all in the same tier for me. You know, one over the other isn't going to be something that I'm going to argue with you on. But I like Browning a lot. Again, you know, he got taken after pick 100. He's not exactly a super high draft capital guy, right. But also when it comes to linebackers, that is still pretty high. That's an investment. As a wide receiver, you might not never see the field, but as a linebacker, you're gonna get your opportunities. And I like him. I don't love him, but I like him.
Yeah, I get you. And another Ohio State guy. So it's all clearly, I have him in at 6, right above Pete Werner, because I think that Browning is going to get more playing time. I believe that he's going to be on the field for either Johnson or Jewell. Those guys were basically, I've never been impressed with Johnson since they came on the spotlight a couple of years ago. I think he's just a guy. I think Jewell has never lived up to his draft status, and he's just a guy. And those two were basically when they produced last year and the year before, whichever, which Jewell was his first real shot was last year. That's protected by default, which counts in IDP. So that should overlap into Browning. I don't know comparably, like I said, pre-draft on how well Browning compared to all these other linebackers, but his opportunity's there. And I believe that you're right. I think that we'll see him starting in one or two of the positions. I don't know if he's a better weak side than he is Mike. I think it almost is going to come down to what the team thinks of Jewell and Johnson. Who do we need to get off the field? So that'll probably dictate who goes where and where he starts. I had him in a 6. I can't believe you're passing over and I'm going to butcher this name for Cleveland.
I'll say it for you.
Thank you.
Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yeah, that dude. I clearly taken in the second round. It's my belief you got Anthony Walker will probably be the starting middle inside linebacker. He's actually a nice breakout. It's not my main breakout, but I believe he's going to break out in that position. And I think that Jeremiah is going to slide right in there at the weak side linebacker position and finally fill what Mac Wilson couldn't do properly. And maybe, I don't know, the kid from LSU, Jacob, still worries me. I think it's Jacob Phillips.
Yeah,
he still worries me, but I think Jeremiah probably, considering that Jacob couldn't do it last year, he's probably got the edge on this. So I have him in at my 5th spot.
Yeah, he's next on my board. He's my 6th guy, and I just love the Browns defense. I feel like I'm not seeing it through the Browns fans' goggles. I'm looking objectively. Maybe that's just optimism in my brain, and I'm not actually doing that.
Yeah.
But I love this defense so much that I don't think JOK is going to really see the field that often. He's going to be their specialty luxury player. He's going to play everywhere. He's going to be kind of that potential Isaiah Simmons role of maybe playing some safety a little bit, playing that weak side linebacker. I don't think he's going to settle in anywhere. He's going to be all over the place, which is a good thing from the Browns' perspective, that they don't have to stick him somewhere and just let him be that guy. He can be their gadget. But from a fantasy perspective, that says to me he's going to have some high variance games, some low variance games. And unlike a guy like Zaven Collins, I don't think that he's going to eventually settle. I think he's going to just be this all or nothing player. He's going to throw up some pure goose eggs sometimes, and then he's also going to have multi-sack games. I like that, but also as a rookie, that's kind of on the optimistic side of where he ends up in my mind. And with the way he starts not really playing at all, and they're going to still get him acclimated, which means I don't really want to touch him. Again, I don't think it's a knock on his skill or even a knock on his health or anything like that. It's a knock on how good the Browns defense is and how little they need to play him. So if they don't need to play him, they can get him acclimated first and then get him in.
Wow.
So I'm just hesitant there, not because I don't like the skill, but because I just don't know how much he's going to play. It's a Micah Parsons situation without Micah Parsons' talent.
Yeah.
I don't want to hate on my guy so much because I love the Browns, but I don't really see a reason to invest here. It's more of a sit back, let somebody else fall in love with him, and go for more consistency.
Well, I get it. I get it.
For fantasy value, it makes total sense.
Yep. Let's recap. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roxanne. I was going to ask him. So let's recap our top. What we pretty well covered 6, 7.
Yeah, I'm on 7. So I've got Jamin Davis as my first, Micah Parsons at 2, Ernest Jones at 3, Pete Werner at 4, Zaven Collins at 5, Baron Browning at 6, and then JOK as my 7.
Okay. And I'm running it Davis 1, Jones 2, Parsons 3, Collins 4. I'm just going to call him Jeremiah OK.
Just say JOK.
Yeah, there you go.
I found the cheat code.
Yeah, I hate it, man. I can't pronounce any of these guys' names. Browning. I got Browning. Browning at 6th and 7th with Werner. All right, so we're on 8th, and I believe it's yours.
Yeah, I think we're going to match up on this one. You've got Nick Bolton, and so do I. I don't love Chiefs linebackers. They really haven't produced anything. They have Willie Gay there, who is supposedly going to be a great linebacker last year, and now looks like he's just kind of going to be a linebacker on the team. You know, the Chiefs are an excellent offensive team. They go to the Super Bowl, it seems like every year. They have Patrick Mahomes. But otherwise, they have Anthony Hitchens, and I don't know what else is going on. So in theory, he's going to play, and he's going to produce. But at the same time, that linebacking core hasn't really played and produced much from a fantasy perspective for some years now, which makes me just hesitant to want to roster them. I'm putting a guy like JOK in front of him, who I just talked about, and said that I don't know what he's going to do and how consistent he's going to be. And I could say the same thing for Nick Bolton, but I don't really think his highs are going to be as high as JOK. And I think that he's going to kind of be all over the place in terms of value. He's not going to be consistent in terms of maybe getting actual fantasy production, whereas he might have consistent playing time. But regardless, this is where I start going, he's young. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the players before him who weren't producing, and now that he's there, he'll produce. But I'm taking a step back and going, well, I guess if I have a draft pick right now, I'm going to take him. But if I do have a draft pick right now, I wish I would have traded it earlier in the offseason.
Well, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's not a knock on Bolton. I was debating on knocking him down a little bit farther, to tell you the truth, because of the Kansas City situation and how they use the linebackers. Since Andy Reid's taken over that defense, it's just not a main every down type person. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter what the linebackers on that team, what their skill sets are. He'll still manage to put in whoever the hell he wants when he wants, whatever down it is. So it's just, I think that's why we see, and whatever he's got for Sorensen playing strong safety, because Sorensen actually is not that great of a player, but he'll have these stretches where he's just killing it like a linebacker because he does stay on the field all the time. So for whatever reason, Andy Reid likes him there. You got Willie Gay. You still have them overpaying. Oh, damn it. I keep forgetting his name. Anthony Hitchison. You got this cluster of players there. And I don't think that the odds are that Bolton can come in and change the philosophy of how they use their linebackers. I don't know what it would take to do that. I don't care if he's taken in the second round. Maybe we do see a flop. Maybe we don't. But there's surely everybody we've mentioned before him surely has a better, more secure, clear role to production than what he would. So I totally agree. That leads me, let's see, so we both had him at 8. I'm going at 9 with the Cincinnati pick in the third round. Osia, I think Joseph Osia out of Texas. Am I pronouncing that right there, Roxanne?
You did good. I'm actually quite proud of you.
Woo-hoo. So my problem with him and the reason he's down there is they had got Logan Wilson last year. They already have Jermaine Pratt there. Another one of those situations where it's kind of been an ugly situation on how they use their linebackers. They do see prior to last year, they did keep Nick Vigil on there. He was productive by default because we can already see, I think he's back up he was back up in Chargers for the Chargers last year. Now I think he's a backup in Minnesota now. But either way, I might have that wrong, so don't quote me on Minnesota. But his bio to me reads a strong side linebacker, possibly more of a defensive end. I wouldn't be surprised. I have not read as much into him or looked at him, but I wouldn't be surprised to me at this point. I don't know what you know, James, but is he going to be a defensive end? I think he could actually start or get some rotational role across from Hubbard.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that he could get some rotational role there. I think he could also see some time at linebacker. And I think, we're seeing a new breed of rookies in that they're not just plug in at this position and stay there all season. They're going to move around the field while they're learning that playbook, which to me seems counterintuitive. But to NFL teams, they seem to be doing it. So what do I know?
Right.
And I have him in this exact same spot as you do. As the reasons you kind of mentioned, there's a lot of other guys in Cincinnati, and I don't necessarily think that he's going to be a guy who supplants them and takes their role, but I don't think that he's necessarily a guy who doesn't do it. It's just Cincinnati hasn't really produced good defensive players. They're on the field all the time because their offense either scores or doesn't score, and then Cincinnati gives up points. They've been very bad defensively, and I don't see what he's going to do to fix their defensive woes. I don't see him snagging lots of tackle volume. I don't see him being that good of a pass rusher. He's very much just going to be a guy out there, which is at this point in your linebacker depth chart of rookies. That's fine to be here. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong, and he gets some playing time. He steals Pratt's job or he takes Wilson's job and he rolls with it, but I don't foresee that happening. And just like Gary said, if he's going to be pass rushing and giving spells to Hendrickson across from Hubbard or to Hubbard if Hubbard gets hurt again, then you just have another guy who's an okay pass rusher. It's not a position that I feel very healthy on drafting on my team because I don't see a ton of upside.
Yeah. Other than Jesse Bates, I like Hubbard this year. I think Hubbard will have a good season being healthy this year and hopefully being the blindside rusher. But other than that, the whole Cincinnati thing is a blah. They spend a lot of time out there, just like you said. But the only real benefactors that so far have been Bates, the really only guy. No, well, Bell. I'm sorry, I forgot all about Von Bell walking in last year, who basically was the slash linebacker slash strong safety, do it all dude up front in the front seven. So, let me ask you a question. If you were sitting there and you're at the end of a draft and you wanted to add some type of flyer depth player, what linebacker would you take a shot on?
I mean, it's my answer that I always say, which is, well, what's the rest of my roster construction? What do I need? If I need somebody with a high ceiling, then I probably want to take JOK and see if my opinions on him are wrong. And he plays often and gets those sack numbers and is all over the field. But if I need someone who's got that lower ceiling and is just going to probably play, but might not be that good if he plays, or might not play right away, but eventually shows up, I like Baron Browning. This whole tier after we go over our top two, after Davis and Parson, for me, everyone's a lot closer here than they are at the top of the draft.
No.
And I think you can throw a name out and just go, all right, I'm kind of guessing. It's like what you do around pick 30 in offensive side, where there's lots of wide receivers, there's clear guys in front of them, and you just go, all right, I'm going to pick this guy, and maybe this is the guy that shows up out of this group. And that's kind of what I would say with these linebackers. These guys all should get some production, which is very nice. They're not all just going to be sit and wait guys, but you're also kind of throwing a dart at seeing who's going to become a star. And one of them probably will. And I don't know which one it'll be. And Gary doesn't know which one it'll be. And frankly, the NFL teams don't know which one it'll be. It's a guessing game. So I think it's more or less take the one that costs the least, because then you've invested the least there and you have other value elsewhere. But I don't think that there's one that just jumps out to me and I say, I like that guy a lot.
Right. Yep. To roll on, so we have we're running on time. Monty Rice, I have him in there at 10th. He's going to have to replace Evans. Whether he gets that chance this year, I don't think he will. But even with that Evans role last year before Brown got hurt, Evans was a part-time player in that scheme. So you got him around that 10th mark?
Yeah, I've got him actually at 11th, and my 10th is Derek Brown. I think that he's going to be a very nice long-term play over in Detroit. I've been probably talking on every one of these podcasts about how Jamie Collins is eventually going to fall apart and eventually become old and not usable. And I think Derek Brown is that guy who goes in and plays when Jamie Collins finally does have that happen. It might not be this year. Derek Brown might not really do much for you this year, but I like him as a long-term dynasty-style play, whereas everyone else we're going to list, like Monty Rice, I'm not that big of a fan on ever really producing a lot of numbers. I think Derek Brown could do it, so that's why I've got him 10, and I got Monty Rice over at 11.
What? Where Derek Brown? I don't even have the poor fellow on here. Was he oh, no, wait a minute. Let me scroll down a little bit. No?
Yeah, he was a mid-4th guy out of Purdue. I obviously don't know much about him because I don't know that much about any of these rookies, but I just like the fact that he's in Detroit, and Jamie Collins is also in Detroit.
Okay. All right. Well, there it is, folks. I dropped the ball. I don't even know who he's talking about. So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm really good. They're living that up. Of course, we're talking the lower, 5, 6, or we're not talking the top 5 or 6 type guys. So Derek Brown. So you like him as your flyer? That was probably, considering what we have left on here. Because I don't think that this Surratt is going to have a role in 2021 as long as Barr is there in Minnesota. And then we just covered then we just covered Rice. What do you think of Surratt real quick? And then I'll ask you your flyer, which I think you might have just gave us one. Yeah, I don't know.
Barnes probably is my flyer. I've got a few more of them actually, but
okay.
In terms of Surratt, it's exactly what you said. I have no idea if he's going to even see the field this year. He might just be a special teams guy. And I loved Eric Wilson. I still don't know why Minnesota decided to not pay him a relatively small sum to return and instead invested elsewhere. So maybe he's the next Eric Wilson in waiting in a few years. They always seem to produce skill, but it just takes so long for them to see the field that it's not worth investing in him today. Invest in him in 2 years when he might be lined up as the starter and just not waste that roster spot today.
Right. So, okay, I guess realistically, you were already talking about Brown in a more of a dynasty sense. Give me a couple of players, how many you have that you linebackers that you think could actually be a good flyer or sleeper for this year to come up when we wouldn't expect it.
Yeah, for this year, I think Cameron McGroin might actually show up and get and rise to the top in New England. I'm not betting on that to happen, but I think that there's a possibility that it happens. I don't think that it's minute or next to impossible. I think it could happen. I'm not betting on it. That's why he's not inside my top 12 linebackers. But if you're going to have to bet and say, hey, let's throw a dart, I don't mind that one. I also think KJ Britt is a sneaky little play, not because I think he's going to beat out any of the linebackers in Tampa, but because those linebackers might get hurt. And if they do get hurt, he suddenly has a lot of value. So there's that. But those are really my two sneaky, maybe they show up and become good guys.
No.
And I guess I could throw a dart over at Chris Garrett on the Rams just because their current linebacking core is nothing I like. So maybe Chris Garrett shows up and is very, very good. He's a 7th-round pick who barely got drafted. So probably not, but maybe.
Right. I'm sticking my flyer, my dart into Nick Newman, and he's with the Chargers. I just think, I think that it's a possibility, a slim possibility based off of Drew Tranquill's health, his ankle, if he can stay healthy. If he emerged at all as a 6th-round pick, when I look at their depth chart, you have Murray and then you have Tranquill coming back from a busted up ankle. There's just not much there to like, in my opinion, unless they've signed somebody that I don't know of. So I have a dart throw on Newman to possibly get some love during the season by default, if nothing else. And then I think my preference on my first flyer would be McDuffie. He was a 6th-round pick for the Packers, and we have the same situation. The Barnes is good. Don't get me wrong, and I could actually see him, but they're still looking for that second guy. They're still looking for that second inside linebacker guy that kind of can play a safety nickelbacker role of types. And if they could ever hit on the right person to fill that role, there could be some, low linebacker too. It depends on the depth of your league type of value there. Or, the descriptions that I was getting is they got a steal with this kid out of Boston College. So we'll see. I think that it might be worth a dart throw just to see. Nobody else has worked out there. It's been since Martinez has left, it's just been a rotational role of potluck. They've not put a bunch of investment into any linebackers in the draft. Kirksey failed last year. So I just a little dart throw of mine. I don't know if you know anything about those two to add.
Everything you're saying makes sense, and I think they are a dart throw, and I think it kind of speaks to how deep this linebacking core actually is. We just said 18 names that we think have the possibility to actually perform in 2021, which is a lot of names when we're talking about rookies only. Not everyone will. I'm sure plenty of these dart throws will fail and they won't connect with the board, but that's a lot of talent that's there. And if you're in an IDP league and you're thinking, oh, well, what can I do? You can kind of sit back and wait if you don't know exactly what you need, because there's dart throws that are worth throwing the darts for, as opposed to on the offensive side of the ball when you look at running back, where I think everyone stinks. It's the exact opposite here at linebacker. I think there's lots of reason to be optimistic. I think there's a lot of reason to just go, hey, this guy could show up. And if I have to invest very cheaply in them, it's worth doing because you can get a very good reward.
Yeah. There'll be a lot of workable waiver wire type players this year, it seems like, on the defensive side. So I thought I thought we met eye to eye at the same time, not getting defensive. So I really appreciate your take on that. You've helped me in my process. We're actually going to cover these again on Friday because we're going to have two other Sam Lane, you guys might know him as Stumpy on Twitter, and Justin Barnes is going to be with us. And this is early, folks. This is the initial rankings everybody is doing on these rookies. And we want to bring you as much insight on these people as we can and get you various rankings or ideas and thoughts so you can help make your own mind up. So we're going to cover these guys again, but from a different point of view, I think. So I'm good. I appreciate you hanging with us today.
Of course, happy to have you. Happy to be here and be part of the team, and love talking about everything and talking about deep players and looking at the entire draft and not just the top 3 guys.
Yeah.
And it's fun to go through and really just pick your brain, and I'm sure for you to pick mine, and see what we're thinking about each and every player from this draft, because we talk about it a lot before the draft, we talk about it a lot after the draft, and soon we're going to phase out of talking about rookies and talking about actual other football players, and suddenly the rookies are going to just disappear. So we talk about them now, and then we don't, and I'm very okay with that. But it's good to just dive in and look at the depth chart right away to see what you think and get that ground-based thought and opinion, and then pay attention to what happens in camp. Pay attention to what happens in OTAs, and just see if people are moving up or down from where you thought they were.
And be careful with those OTAs too in rookie minicamp. Just because they stick one of these guys in and they're with the first team during that time, it doesn't mean he's replacing whoever might actually be the starter, folks. It just means they want to get a look at this guy playing. They're still evaluating through the spring. So. And then they're still evaluating in preseason. So I got to go get him because I see a report that he was playing weak side inside linebacker today. Right. Don't shoot yourself in the foot, folks.
Right. Until you see the production on the field, it hasn't happened yet.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
We're wrapping it up. I got to go. Thank you for joining us. We will see you Friday. James, always love listening to you. Gary, your insight is always valuable. Thank you. I look forward to Friday.
Yep. See you, people.
Bye, everybody.